The explanation of benefit says my client owes zero.
Hmm.
The hospital says she owes money. The hospital's wrong. So if the insurance says that you don't owe anything, guess what? If it's an in-network provider and it says you don't owe anything, you don't owe anything. So don't ever pay a bill until you've matched those up and the numbers are the same, and you know for sure that the provider is billing you what you're actually responsible for.
Welcome. In this episode of the Hope Health and Wellness Advocacy podcast, we talk with Nicole Broadhurst of Tennessee Health Advocates. Welcome to this episode of the Hope Health and Wellness Advocacy podcast. I'm your host, Tara Adams, and with me today, I've brought back Nicole Broadhurst, a fellow private patient advocate that specializes in medical billing. Hi, Nicole.
Hey, Tara. Thanks for having me.
Gosh, I tell you what, I really loved having you before describe to us in detail kind of what we need to do to safely navigate the healthcare system financially, because that's a huge part of the system. I want to give a little story here because when we talk about the financial aspect of medical care, I think that gets forgotten sometimes in the conversation. Years ago, I had to take my mom to see a gastroenterologist, and had already looked to see that he was in network with her insurance, made the appointment, checked in, she was being seen. And all over the walls, while we're waiting for the doctor to come in, it says, certain procedures are recommended by the doctor, but they're not always covered by your insurance. Be sure that you ask and talk to us before the procedure begins to see if it's covered or needs pre-approval, because once the procedure is done, you are liable for the cost of it. I mean, this was multiple places, right? And my mom, who, I was helping her pay for her bills at the time, and that was a huge burden on us that I love to do. No guilt there, but just like, okay, noted, should probably bring this up. Sure enough, he comes in, he says, I need to do certain procedure. And so I said, well, I just would like to ask, do you know if this is covered? Should we talk to someone in the administration about if this is covered? And he flew off the handle. He lost his mind. I don't know what was happening for him personally, but whatever it was, he started saying to me, like, why would you bring this up if you don't care enough about our health to just pay whatever? If you're gonna bind my hands based on how much you can afford, then you just don't even need to be here. Financial part of healthcare is a big part of it. They recognize that at some point to put signs up in there. So this was not a good experience. And so the financial aspect is not just the bill that you get. It can be when you're in the office. And to your point, we had you on here before, and you really explained to us how we need to know our insurance policies. That is a contract that we signed that says that they will cover certain procedures, certain prescriptions, certain doctors, and at what level. And then we're contractually obligated to pay our part if it fits within that, or if they said they wouldn't cover it, they said they wouldn't cover it, right? And so there's that's the basic. And I appreciated that you really helped us understand, like that's where we can start when we go into our financial, medical, health billing issues, is start with the basics. And if anybody has questions, you're not sure what we're talking about, I'm going to refer you to our first video with Nicole, where she really gave a lot of great information. But so personally, this means a lot to me. The financial aspect, yes, it's unfortunate that sometimes we have to make medical decisions based on how much money we may have for a procedure or to see a doctor, but it is a reality. And so talking to you today, we're going to talk about essential strategies to save on medical bills. And so one of the things I'd like to start with is asking you, how can we avoid the number one reason people are surprised when they receive their medical bills?
I think that the answer to that lies in our first conversation. It really is about understanding our benefits and what our responsibilities are. If we can do that, then when we won't be afraid when the mail comes, right? We'll be able to open that mail and not be surprised because we already know what is covered and what isn't. And if we're surprised, there's probably a problem,
Yeah, for sure.
right?
I love how you said
Yeah.
before to get intimate with your policy. Yes, it is. It is. It
I
is.
have to tell you, can I tell you a funny story about
Yes,
that quote?
please.
So I got a quick phone call from a friend of mine who writes for a major outlet. And she was on a tight deadline. And she said, what is the one thing that you would tell people about choosing their insurance or that they need to pay attention to with their medical bills or whatever? And literally, just because I was like in my pajamas walking around the kitchen with a cup of coffee, it was early on a Saturday morning. And I just said, I just wish everyone would get really intimate with their health insurance policy. And of course, that's what she put in the article. And
I love that. I love that because it conjures up a fun image, and there's not much fun when you're talking about medical health billing. But I gotta say, I'm envisioning, getting a glass of Chardonnay and sitting with your benefits explanations and really understanding it.
filling out and reading it. Yes, yes.
And it's going to be
That really
electronic.
is the number one.
It's going to be electronic so we can search it. Thanks to our first video, we
Yay.
know that that's what we
Yes,
want and need.
that's right. Keep it simple. You don't want to be reading for days and days. Fall asleep in the middle of it. But that
Okay,
really
so
is the number one risk. Yeah.
I appreciate that. And I think you're right. I mean, because once I implemented that, from talking to you before, when I've worked with you, it really has made a difference. It makes a difference, not just in being able to tackle the untangling of what's going on and what are they saying? What are they even saying? And then what do you want me to do about it? Because sometimes it's just that simple and kind of messy is what it feels like. But it really puts you in a great frame of mind to just, this isn't personal. They're not coming after you. It feels that way at times. I'm going to say, I admit that,
Yes.
but it's not. And you helped me to see that. And I appreciate that. So along those lines, are there specific steps that we can take to make sure our medical bills are correct? I can't wait for the answer to this because I know there is, because I've used your help to get there. So please share with the audience here what we can do to make sure that our bills are correct.
So it's really, there's 3 steps. I can break it down into 3. There's more, but the 3 essential steps to making sure that our medical bills are correct are the following. 1, make sure that when you get that medical bill, it has processed through your insurance company. Okay. Never, ever, 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 ever pay the bill if it has not processed through your insurance company. If you have insurance, right? I mean, the majority of folks have insurance these days. That's a whole nother topic. But if you have insurance, make sure that the bill has processed. So you want to get the medical bill from the provider. That's the first thing. If you have already received what is called an explanation of benefits from the insurance company, right? So once you have both of those documents, okay, look at them and compare what the provider says that you owe them and make sure that it matches the part on your explanation of benefits that says your responsibility. Now, sometimes it says you may owe, it may say patient responsibility, but bottom line is the explanation of benefits is going to tell you how much you should owe the provider. Those numbers should match. If they don't, there's a problem.
Yes.
Okay. Because I have negotiated and gotten things taken care of. I have one right now that I'm working with The explanation of benefit says my client owes zero.
Hmm.
The hospital says she owes money. The hospital's wrong. So if the insurance says that you don't owe anything, guess what? If it's an in-network provider and it says you don't owe anything, you don't owe anything. So don't ever pay a bill until you've matched those up and the numbers are the same, and you know for sure that the provider is billing you what you're actually responsible for.
I agree. Now, here's where I've seen recently, for me personally, I had with my cardiologist, I've had some recent really troubling back and forth, frequent communications and visits with the cardiologist. And that's led them to bill me. And when they bill me weird. And that is because I've gotten to where every time, sometimes I'd have televisits and sometimes I would have in-person visits. It didn't matter. I would say, even with a televisit, I'd call ahead of time. Can I go ahead and pay for today's visit? And sometimes they'd be like, they weren't available or whatever. I would keep calling because honestly, it was so much easier and better to just go ahead and pay it that day. I was in a position to be able to do it. And I knew it would help me later with this aspect of it. But some days I just could not get through to the billing. It didn't happen, whatever. So what would happen is invariably another future date visit, I go, I pay the copay and I ask them, I feel like I didn't pay the last time, I should have a balance. Oh no, you don't have a balance. Well, some people would be like, well, you said I didn't have a balance. Well, no, I knew pretty much. I sort of tried to channel, what would Nicole say? Probably they haven't either submitted it to insurance or they haven't received word back from insurance what's going on. So it's not that I don't owe it, it's that the process has not completed itself. Makes you feel good, doesn't it? I'm listening. I really am. I've been listening to Nicole.
And I love that you remembered that, because I think that is really important. What you just said is that there is a process to billing, and the way that it works is that they should bill the insurance first and wait. And then when they get that determination back, then they determine, oh, insurance paid this. This is the amount we need to bill the patient. So there is that piece of time where patient responsibility account with the provider does say zero.
Yes.
Doesn't mean it's going to stay that way. And I love that you brought that up, because it's important to know that there can be that lag of time.
And that's an aspect that I don't think people understand and realize. And that feels like that is variable. I think that is either because of kind of what you just said, offices deal with it differently. Not every office waits to get communication back from insurance. They're like, well, you should pay, or they think, or they want to go ahead and collect, or whatever the case may be. And I think that's where the confusion can come in sometimes. But in this particular case, I didn't owe it. Well, what ended up happening was months went by. And so when I would make payments, they were applying partial payments, or they were applying payments to dates that I didn't pay it originally. And then it was this weird billing for me when I get it that I'm looking at, so that when I go to look at my explanation of benefits, it's not apples and apples that I am. It's not like you had a visit on this day and you did pay it. So therefore, there is no more for you to pay. The insurance has paid the rest of it, blah, blah, blah. Here's a date you went, you didn't pay. So therefore, you do owe that because we paid the rest of it, expecting you to pay your copay, not co-insurance. And and so it's not easy peasy. And that's where I think it drives me mad, because it's like, who's, accounting is accounting, right? Like how is this benefiting you guys to bill me this way? Like what made you think, like I had a 97-cent charge for a copay on one of these billing things? I'm like, okay, well, that's bananas. At no point has it ever been like, what was it on sale? Like we're doing a 97-cent day to visit the doctor. Like what? That's not the case. So that's maddening. So I agreed, start with what you're saying and then hire you when that comes back. I'm just kidding. but
Yeah,
a lot. It
yeah.
took a lot of me really going, this makes sense to somebody. We can do this. We are smart. We can do hard things. Let's look through the
Yes, we
paperwork.
can.
And so I took day by day, and it was, because again, I said, what would Nicole do? Nicole would try to make sense, because what you said in the first video and the way I heard it was, you look at the paperwork and see the story being told, and then you take that story and create a narrative so that you can tell your client or patient, okay, this is what is happening. This is what they sent you, but this is what it means. This is what's happening. This is what you need to do. And I feel like not all of us are able to take that picture the way they send it and do a translation or understand the story, particularly when we're not well or we're kind of panicked anyway, like, oh my gosh, I've been seeing so many doctors and getting so many diagnostics and so much of this, and I didn't plan for this, and I can't work well because I am sick. And you kind of get amped up and you see those bills and you're just like, they're out to get me. And it's a real feeling that if you don't get over it, translates into who you talk to in the billing department, and that's not fun.
It does. It does, and it can create a really uncomfortable situation. But I really want to share, and I think a really, really important thing for everyone to hear right now is that you can't translate that because you are not fluent in that language, not because you're not smart enough, not because you can't figure it out, but the reality is that you've not been taught how to speak that language. Right. And so until somebody teaches you how to speak that and says, this is exactly why I advise people don't make payments before service.
Yeah.
Unless you know, right? And even then, because you just shared that you have a copay and you know that it's $20, whatever, I'm making it up, but and you know that every time you go, you're gonna owe $20. But if you pay it, I don't know why the billing is so crazy to read. Like it's insane to read. Even for me, I'm like, I know that this is I know what to expect. So I know where to look, and and it still never ceases to amaze me when I look at a bill and I go, what?
Right.
Why would you do that? That doesn't, nobody's going to understand that. So it's designed that way. Do not feel bad. Do not beat yourself up. Do not like you said, take the time to just read through it. And if you really can't figure it out, give me a call, give somebody a call, because here's the truth. Almost all of us offer a free 15-20-minute call. And those of us that are fluent in that language, like I have lots of people who call me and say, hey, this is what happened. I got this, I got that, but I didn't get this. And I will say, you know what? In fact, I just had one yesterday with a man. And I said to him, you know what? I think this is going to work itself out for you. And here's why. This is what I think is happening. And if this is what's happening in a few weeks, this is all going to be resolved. So let's sit tight and wait and see, because I think this is going to go away. He just texted me last night and said, I just got a bill that said I owe $90. I think that everything is figured out.
Awesome.
Because we went from a $25,000 bill to a $90 bill.
Oh, wow. It's definitely going in the right direction if it hasn't worked itself out yet.
Yeah. So I think it has. I wouldn't be surprised. Based on what he said, I feel like, and so because I'm fluent in that language, I can understand and kind of give you a better idea of, I don't necessarily think there's going to be a problem here, even though it looks like there might be.
Right.
Let's wait some time.
Yeah. I can appreciate that. I wonder if, not all offices are able to, I was thinking if I couldn't figure it out on my own, my next step before calling you was to be like, you guys know this is kind of bananas. Like, you must have it in your system at some point where it made sense to somebody and it didn't look quite like this. Can I just get you to reprint it in a way that says this date, this is what you're applying to it, and this is why you think that you should apply that the way you are, or walk me through it. Because, and I've always said to them, and this is true for me, I want them to get paid. I appreciate that the doctors, the medical people are helping me. I have a lot of problems. I have 99 problems, and I need hundreds of doctors to help me with these problems. So I appreciate their time and the education it took them to get it. I want them paid. I just want to know that A, I'm paying it, and that we're done, that we're settled, that you are truly paid, and B, that we understand and we're in agreement, and you're not going to go to collections on me, or I'm not going to feel like I, whatever, got bent over somehow. So,
Yeah, right. Right. I just want to know that it was fair, right? And
right.
I paid what I was responsible for, and not what somebody else was like. Like I only paid what I needed to pay. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So let me ask you this. We talked a little bit about this in our other video, but I'm curious, kind of along these lines where we're talking about strategies to save on medical bills. Is it possible to shop healthcare services?
So it is. So it is. And I get really excited about this because um, it's still a little bit wonky. Okay.
Yeah.
But it is possible, especially when we are looking at outpatient services,
Mm,
meaning, not being in a hospital bed overnight, that kind of thing. Talking about, services that we walk into the hospital or a freestanding imaging center and get the procedure or get the service, and then we go home.
mm.
That's outpatient, right? So for those services, so there is two tools that I want everyone to know about. One is healthcarebluebook.com.
Get out of here. There's a blue book for healthcare.
Yes, there is.
Awesome. How long has that been around?
That's been around probably, I want to say close to 5 or 6 years. That's
Oh,
been
wow.
around for a while. Healthcare Blue Book is one. And the other is called Turquoise Health. And both of these, now, what you need in order to use these is you need the CPT code. Now, that's a procedure code. And you can get that from the doctor. So if the doctor orders an MRI, you can ask. Now the doctor probably won't know. You'll need to ask at the front desk, what CPT code will you be using for this?
Yeah.
And you get the CPT codes from them, because that's what you need for both Healthcare Blue Book and for Turquoise Health. You'll put the CPT code in, you'll put your zip code in, and it will return to you. It will return to you the average price in your area on Blue Book. And at Turquoise, you're actually going to get the published price for the hospitals and the providers in your zip code, if they've complied with the law, right? If they've actually posted that readable file with that information in it, then Turquoise has pulled it into their database and they will turn it back out to you. So I have used this multiple times, not just to shop on the front end, but if you get into a situation where you're uninsured and you're billed after the fact and you get it, you can use this information to negotiate the bill.
I like that.
Mhm. So I've got one right now that it's with a local hospital that billed twice what their published cash rate was. And we have a pending settlement letter with the hospital right now. So we're just waiting to see what happens. But from my perspective and my client's perspective, there's no reason that this is their published cash price, so they should accept payment of that amount. So those are two tools that I highly, highly encourage everyone to get familiar with.
Man, I cannot thank you enough for that, because that could really change some budgets when it comes to trying to afford healthcare. So let me ask you a couple of questions regarding that. I know in the past I've had some procedures talked about or whatever, and I was like, well, A, do I really want to do the procedure? And B, what are we looking at here? Especially when there's multiple, or what generally happens for me, particularly being complex chronic health issues, is I've got different specialists and all of them are coming at kind of a different angle. And so they've got different tests or different procedures they want to do. And so part of my decision-making process is, how much are we looking at? What does this look like for me financially? I mean, yes, it's great in a world where the money is no object. I could do all of this possibly if I wanted to, but you know, I don't live in that world, and
Right.
financial, you know, the financial aspect of it is definitely a determining factor. So when I talked to my insurance before, they've asked me for a diagnosis code to go with the procedure or the CPT code. Is that unusual? I found that's not consistent for every time I call, but it does seem to affect certain procedures. And I couldn't tell you now what procedure that was about, but is that something that we should ask about as well? And is that usual?
Yes, so there are many times in your plan description, your benefit plan description document, that will tell you what criteria you need to meet in order for you to meet medical necessity. This is a little bit deeper than we normally go, but in that plan document, it very well may say, if you want an MRI, here's medical necessity for an MRI. And that includes diagnosis A, B, C. So the insurance may have some sort of limitation on an MRI that in order to get it, you have to have one of these specific diagnoses, right?
Mhm.
So when you're looking at your benefits, yes, the CPT and the diagnosis code can be very important. When
Yes.
you're shopping on these tools, it does not ask you that.
Okay.
This tool is strictly for the price for that procedure.
Got it.
Okay.
I will say I was surprised recently. I run labs at least yearly, if not multiple times a year on myself. And one of those is homocysteine. I have an MTHFR double gene mutation, and homocysteine is something that we regularly check to see kind of how I'm doing. And recently the insurance, who has not in the past, typically because I have those diagnoses and I have those issues, has not refused it. They did recently, saying that now you not only have to show that you have a diagnosis, but you have to actively be in, and this is, I'm paraphrasing because I can't remember exactly how political ease they used to put it in there, but it was along the lines of, you need to be actively having a problem that death looks imminent for us to consider covering that. In other words, you need to have been hospitalized. You need to, like, blood clots need to be a real factor that are uncontrollable. Not just that you had a blood clot and it was treated, but that it's still, and this is with my current insurance. I don't know if we want to call them out or anything, but that's a current concern. And so I thought that was rather interesting, because this has not been the case. And so not only do I have to have a diagnosis and I need to know the procedure code, and it was quite a lot to get that homocysteine pulled without insurance help. So I ended up talking to the lab, and I said, look, I understand. I didn't understand that this had changed. That's my bad. I didn't get intimate with my insurance policy this time and understand that it had changed. But understand going forward, I do not want to not get this checked. I feel like this is important. I feel like my doctors think it's important, so therefore I think it's important. I've had blood clots. I do not want blood clots again, and I don't want to wait until I'm actively in a blood clot, actively having problems, to have this covered. So what can we do here? I said, is there a way that, like, if I just didn't use insurance and I came back and I paid cash? It goes, oh yeah. It was like a significant difference. And she said, I said, well, how would I go about that? And so just as sort of a side note, I would say to those watching, if you can't get a hold of Nicole or you're not there, one of my suggestions would be put it on these people that you're talking to. Let them know, like, I'm in this situation, and this is, advocate for yourself and say, who can I talk to? How can I make this financially possible for myself? There's generally some way, but it'll be different how you get those answers. But what I got back was essentially get it requested separately, ask for it as cash pay, and then pay for it in full separately the day of. And it was a significant, I mean, I think it went from well over $150 to like $25 or something like that. What a difference, right?
So this is the other thing that I love to tell people. Just because I have insurance doesn't mean I have to use it.
Ah, yes.
There are lots of times where I get a better deal by paying cash. So, personal experience here. I have a very high deductible insurance policy. Our total out of pocket is $18,500.
Wow.
So most years we are not, my husband and I are not going to hit that out of pocket. It's just not going to happen, right?
Well, we hope not.
Right. So the truth is we pay cash for everything. The only reason that we're relatively healthy, we have a couple of chronic issues. He's diabetic, and so he's on an oral medication for that. I'm asthmatic. I have one oral medication for my asthma. We pay cash for everything, our meds, our visits, everything, mainly because we have the insurance to cover us if something really bad happens, or if all of a sudden I become chronically ill and I need lots of help. Then I know, right? We know what our maximum is going to be for that year when that happens, and then we can change insurance, hopefully. But my point being is that if you have something that's not covered and you know it's not covered, go ahead and tell them, I don't even want you to run this through insurance. I'm going to cash pay it. What's the price? Because chances are you'll get a better deal.
Yes, I agree with that wholeheartedly. That is a high deductible, I have to say. That is a truly catastrophic level. And I hope they cover it 100% after that.
So our deductible is $5,000. So we have co-insurance between the 5 and the 18.
Oh, okay.
So
I was worried about you, Nicole. I did.
No,
that makes sense. And so you truly get to shop whoever doctor that you feels best. They could be, alternative, holistic, naturopathic, whatever, or regular MD, DO, traditional allopathic medicine, all of it. You're going to pay it. And I guess the other thing too is I found this because I did that for a while with a high deductible. You end up actually taking a lot longer to reach that deductible because when you pay cash pay, there's a significant savings. So it's like, takes you triple the time to meet. Whereas before you'd think, oh, well, 18,000, honestly, there's been years where I easily kind of met that if I was dealing with general regular insurance. Once you take that out of the mix and you pay cash, ooh, that's a difference. I've worked with doctors that are like $150, $175, $250 a visit. And you think, oh my gosh, you're coming from like a $20, $40 a copay. You think, oh my goodness, who do they think they are? I can't afford that. I want you to know, if I ran the numbers right now in my Quicken report, I can guarantee you that the decades I spent on copays for medical visits, diagnostics, prescriptions, pale in comparison to going to doctors where I paid them outright cash pay their rate and got more help because they could spend an hour with me at that point. They did follow-ups where I wasn't nickel and dimed for every visit or every conversation, or sold stuff to try to make up for what they got bills to pay. I don't fault them, but that's a system that's harder on my system than this way. So yeah, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I'm sorry.
It's okay. I just wanted, there is a caveat to that because what you said is really accurate. When I waive my benefit and I don't have them submitted to my benefit, to my insurance, that money that I've paid out cash doesn't actually count towards my deductible because it never hits the insurance. So for me, and for those of us that are in a position, and I understand that everybody's not in that place, right?
Yeah.
And this is why it's really important to understand your benefits and understand how you're going to use them. Because really our insurance is set up such that it's only for a big thing. It's not for our doctors. It's not for our meds. It's not for, and we understand that. And we're
Right.
intentionally using it that way. But this is, my sister says to me all the time, I could never do that. I don't, and I'm like, you don't have to, like, no, like just because I do it this way does, like, you know, that would be like saying I have this kind of car insurance and
Right.
everyone should have it. No, everybody gets to, you know, do their own thing, whatever works for everybody. And
Right.
but that's just something to know, right? If you waive it and you're paying cash and they're not submitting it to your insurance company, then those dollars don't count towards your deductible. So something to
Yeah,
keep in mind.
for sure. But I do love how you're talking about there's different options. And I think, you know, that's something I would love to talk to you about at a different time is kind of what are those options? Because at a time, you know, when I grew up, there was insurance and insurance was, and it was all what we're used to. And my husband, I can tell you, for years, part of our issues with me trying to get, you know, holistic, naturopathic, or just complementary health care to go with what I was doing to try to figure something out, because I just, you know, me staying ill all the time was not the answer I was going for. And trying to explain to him, you know, insurance doesn't cover this. And his thought is, well, if insurance doesn't cover it, then it must not be real. It must not be good. It must not be, you know, and that's not the case either. So I think there's a lot of education that people need to understand, is that insurance is a way to make certain types of healthcare affordable. It's offered a lot of times through work. And so there's work sort of mindset behind that, you know, making sure you're able to be at work and to do the job you need to do is what they're kind of really looking at, making it possible for you to afford to do, but not necessarily covering everything you want or need, and not necessarily making it absolutely affordable or make sense even. And just like I said, I mean, nobody informed me that the homocysteine change had happened. And I mean, that's a pretty significant issue, not just for me. There's a lot of people getting their homocysteine checked. And I guarantee you, with the prevalence of COVID and how it's affected a lot of people cardiovascularly, that is also going to play a part in that. And I have to wonder if that's kind of the reason why it happened too, is because they're getting hit by a lot of things and they're trying to manage cost, and they're a business, you know. They're not running a charity as much as we'd love for them to. And I, as someone who's worked with small, medium, and large corporations and companies and helped entrepreneurs and has been an entrepreneur for many years, I get it. So I'm not at all mad that they're taking a capitalist approach to making money. And I love when you told me early on, you're like, you know, you need to know the contract. You signed a contract. This is what you agreed to. You have your responsibilities and they have theirs. And when you get involved, you're just making sure that they're upholding their end of the bargain.
That's right.
And
Accountability.
Accountability, exactly. And I appreciate that. And I think that if we all understood that early on, like in high school, when we're talking about how to live independently as an adult, that would really help a lot of things. I think it would help the insurance companies,
So
right?
too.
I mean,
Yeah.
I can't imagine they shouldn't put some of their marketing dollars to put towards high school students to let them know this is how insurance works. Okay.
Right.
This is how you can make it work for you. But, well, So I think we kind of addressed why we would want to waive our insurance benefits. Is there anything there that we didn't cover, you think?
No, I think we organically just went right into that question. So I think we're good.
Good.
Understanding that as an option is important, and also understanding when you wouldn't want to do that, and how to make those decisions. I think that information is so powerful, and this is the information that I want everyone to have. I would love if nobody ever needed me ever again. That would be
Right?
wonderful.
What
Yes.
I love about the patient advocate community is because we all are like, listen, we just want you to get help. It can be through me, it can be through her or anybody else. We just want you to get the best help you can get so you can get well quicker, faster, and you can be alongside us helping others. Because honestly, that's the goal. I feel like, not to get all religious and woo-woo, but when it says to go out and spread the good word, this is part of the good word, because you can't enjoy living life on earth if you don't have health, and if you can't afford health, what is it all for? It really is difficult. So I appreciate that, and I love that about you. You've always been how was it Office Depot where they had the easy button? Like you make it easy. You make it seem easy, and you make it easy. So I really appreciate that.
Thank you, Tara.
Is there any other strategies that we can use to save bills other than just trying to keep from getting?
Yeah, I think those are the big ones, right? And there's always little idiosyncrasies and nuances, but those are the really, really big strategies that everyone can apply. And I think we've covered them.
Well, I wish there were more. I wish that if we think of any more, we'll have to bring you back so that we can discuss. But I cannot wait to get on turquoise.health and the blue book. Oh my goodness. I did not even know those existed.
Shoot me a message when you do that. Let me know how much fun you have over there.
And how much I plan to save going forward with all of the many diagnoses and procedures. So one of the things I like to ask everybody that I interview is, we've asked you in our previous interview about your recipe, and I love that. I'm still waiting to be able to try that for myself. What I'd like to ask you this time is, what is your favorite book and why?
Ooh, you're gonna like this.
Okay.
You're gonna like this. So here is my favorite book right now. It's called Conviction Marketing by Kelly Roach. And
I've heard of her.
There it is. Can you see it?
Yes.
And here's why. Because this book is teaching me how to market in alignment with my personal values.
I love that.
And I get to show up authentically me and promote and market my services and myself and not feel slimy, like a slimy salesperson. So that's my favorite book, and that's why.
That is amazing. I've always really appreciated the authenticity and integrity that you bring to what you do. And when we've talked privately and then seeing you with your clients, I mean, at all times, I like to work with people that way. That's how I like to work myself, is to be as authentic and in integrity and alignment as possible. So I love that. I can't wait to read that. I haven't read it yet, so I will definitely read that. But thank you so much for sharing that with us.
Thank you.
Well, thank you again for being here, and thank you for sharing with us so much really powerful information that we can actively take to save ourselves money. And how can someone work with you, and how can they get in touch with you?
So you can find me really easily on LinkedIn, Nicole Broadhurst. Medical Bills Made Easy. That'll be a really easy way to find me there. You connect with me there.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Nicole. We appreciate it. Hopefully we'll have you on again soon.
Love it.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Be empowered. Be your own self-advocate. Check out our website, hopehwa.com.